Hey everybody, hope you're well. It's Lawrence here. Welcome back to Giant Talk, the world's first OKR podcast and still the only dedicated OKR podcast. This week I am delighted to have an awesome guest join us, and that's RJ, the Chief Operating Officer of Ubiqum, who's joining us from Barcelona today. RJ, welcome to the podcast.
Hello Lawrence, thanks for having me here at the podcast. I'm really glad to be here and answer any questions that you guys might have.
Fantastic. So today we're going to be talking really, RJ, aren't we, about the way OKRs and Agile link together, because I understand Ubiqum is a very agile business.
That is correct, yeah. We are implementing Agile throughout our organizations 100%, and as well also OKRs. So Fantastic. It would be a good and interesting topic to talk about today.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, RJ. What's your background?
Okay, so basically I've been in Agile software development for the past 15 years. We started with test-driven development and then into Scrum and then doing Kanban and XP. So I've been in organizations, both large and small organizations, 50 people, 100 people, and large organizations in the tens of thousands.
Wow.
So I've had a pretty broad experience when it comes to size and also implementing Agile and OKRs in these sizes of organizations.
Amazing. So you must have some really interesting stories from some of those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of things going on in the world right now.
100%. So what is it that Ubiqum do then?
So Ubiqum is basically a software training company. We're based in 6 cities, in Barcelona, Madrid, Amsterdam, Berlin, Buenos Aires, and in Lisbon. And our focus is basically we turn absolute beginners into either software developers or data analysts in 5 to 6 months. So we have a methodology called learning by doing or project-based methodology. So we don't have traditional classes. We don't have exams. But basically, our students or trainees, they are coding on day one, and they learn the concepts through coding and activities that are within simulated projects. And the beauty of this methodology is that they enter the workforce as effortlessly as possible. So in the 5th and 6th months, we have partners, hiring partners, that basically hire these students and trainees directly.
Fantastic. So how many students have you had go through the organization so far then, do you know?
We've got more than 500 going on. And so these are a B2C line. We also have like a B2B line where companies hire us to reskill their employees. So that's another... Yeah, so that's another line of business. And we also have a B2G line. So it's the government asking us to work with unemployed people so that they can also be reskilled and they can eventually get jobs. So, so in terms of the B2C line, we're in the 500 plus number.
That's a fantastically worthy company. What a brilliant organization. Because it must make coding so much more accessible as well to everybody. Because I think it can be quite an intimidating thing to get started on, can't it?
I mean, a lot of people think that coding is intimidating. But I mean, of course, there's this part of coding where it's complicated and complex. But what we want to do is like make it as less threatening as possible. So when people start coding, they enter this coding world in a very, very accepting way, you know?
Absolutely. How long's the organization been going, RJ?
We have been in business since 2016.
Okay. Yeah, and were you one of the founders, or did you join later?
No, I was. I knew the founder a long time ago, 2015, and I was asked to join this year to lead the operations.
Fantastic. So that leads me on to my next question. So what's your role within the organization then?
So basically, I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Ubiqum. So I'm responsible for the operations globally and also implementing all the agile philosophies throughout the organizations, from Scrum to Kanban to XP, and making sure everyone's also on track with OKRs on a global level.
Okay, so you mentioned you're based over 6 cities then. Do you
Correct.
have OKRs that all align to one global vision?
That is correct. So we have OKRs for the entire company. Then we also have OKRs per city.
Right.
So the nice thing about it is that so on an executive level, we come up with the OKRs on a global scale, and then for the OKRs in each city, we ask the local teams to come up with their own OKRs also that align with the company OKRs. So we take advantage of their local knowledge. We also allow them to contribute to the whole process, and this makes them more motivated and makes them more effective also when it comes to implementing OKRs in each city.
Fantastic. So why was it that you decided to use OKRs as an organization?
So basically for us, we wanted to use OKRs so that we would have a target, and that we would find a way to reach this target every time we set it. So this was the whole idea of having OKRs in the company.
Okay. And are you able to share with us what that vision is, or?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's several facets of the company. So we've got like operations, marketing, we've got also sales and product going on. So right now it's basically allowing the company to continuously grow,
right,
and to make it happen in a very sustainable way. So the operations have to be smooth, they have to be scalable, everybody has to be on the same page. Also, the growth has to be dependent on good marketing, on stable sales, these numbers.
Right. And what is it about an organization that makes it scalable to you?
For me, an organization is scalable if it has sound processes that can be implemented by everyone in the team. So to allow them to have goals that are attainable, to allow them to have access to clear processes. If there are doubts, they have open communication with us and the executive team so that we can answer any questions that they have. As long as everything is clear and everything is achievable, I see this as a path to sustainable and scalable growth.
I agree. Absolutely. So you mentioned that, well, as you guys are as a business, you know, you're agile, and you also instruct in the ways of agile and Scrum and all those different techniques.
Mm-hmm.
How within your organization do OKRs and agile link together though?
Mm-hmm. I think this is the most interesting question that I've heard from your group. And I'd like to explain it in this way. So since we're a software training organization, most of our, I would say, sprint goals are based on the software modules, the success of these software modules that are implemented. So the goals in these software modules that are implemented by our team are linked directly to the key results and the key results to the objectives. So there's a granularity that happens on a global scale. And it goes lower and lower and more refined all the way to the sprint goals of the team.
Right, that's really interesting then. So the key results are almost providing the context for the agile principles.
That is correct, yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting. Has there been any friction or collisions where the agility, the agile principles and the OKR principles just haven't combined well?
That is also another a good question. And we've tried to fuse them together, because OKRs, when you hear OKRs, it's like, okay, this is the target and we're going to reach it no matter what. Okay. Then you have the agile principles that are talking about adaptability, being more responsive to the market. No. Yeah. So the way we've linked these two concepts together, or the way that we've allowed these concepts to mesh well together, is to have OKRs that have ranges instead of like specific numbers. No, this means that instead of having one target, or instead of having like a moving target. You have a range of targets that could be reached. Like I would use sales as a very concrete example here. It's very impossible to predict the sales that you're going to have in a certain quarter or certain month. So in order to put this into perspective or into good context, you have best case scenario for sales, medium or as expected case scenario for sales, and also worst case scenarios for sales. So having an OKR like this allows your organization to adapt also to what the market is actually telling you.
Okay. So how do you then measure the progress that you've made towards those ranges?
Mm-hmm. So for like best case scenarios and let's say medium or as expected scenarios, these are when things go as planned,
Right.
Or even better, even perfectly. So sometimes when the projects go exactly as planned and the market responds exactly as we expected or even better, then you've got the best case scenarios and pat on the back for that. But it's interesting when things don't go as planned. So there's so many, I would say, plan Bs, plan Cs, or alternatives that we do in order to, one, try to get ourselves back on track, or to like accept the reality that the market is telling us. Like, let's just accept a hit in the face, no?
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, the reason why it's good to have a range of OKRs is to also manage the motivation of the team. Because if you have goals that are not achievable, you're just simply demotivating the team, and it doesn't help. So having these range of OKRs allows you to communicate the fact that, okay, there's a best scenario, there's an unexpected scenario, and there's a worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And this is what happens in reality. You have to be able to accept what the market is going to throw at you at any given point in time, and also adapt to what's thrown at you. So I think that's allowing these OKRs and Agile principles to work together.
That's really interesting, because I know that a question that we get asked of a lot is, when we first start working with a client is, okay, well, our dev teams already work to an Agile sprint or Scrum methodology, so we don't want our OKRs going anywhere near those. And I think what you're providing with us here is a little bit more context of actually the fact that you shouldn't let that put you off, and there is a way to blend the two together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for OKRs, like these are more of like, I would say, business concepts, and then you have like the Agile principles that are coming from software engineering. But yeah, I mean, they have to be able to live together in an organization, because you've got a lot of business people trying to communicate their ideas and their concepts, and you've got a lot of engineering people also that need to communicate in a way that is realistic also and implementable. So these adaptive OKRs, the meshing of OKRs and Agile, I mean, it has to be done. I mean, of course, there are some fundamental concepts that I would say you're not really breaking these rules, but you're more of like bending them so that you have a bridge between these two disciplines.
Sure. What I'm interested is how you make the cadence work between the two different types of meetings that need to go on, because people who have worked with me or been clients of mine will know that the one thing I always say is that cadence is king, and that OKRs will live by the habits and live or die by the habits and routines that you have within your organization. And I'm sure the listeners to the podcast will have heard me say that before as well. Mm-hmm. How do you end up keeping the organization so it's not just drowning in weekly check-ins and daily stand-ups and huddles and all of that sort of thing?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, when you talk about cadence, I'd like to first talk about OKRs and later with the Agile and Scrum, no? So for the OKRs, we have quarterly OKRs, and we set them on a quarterly basis. So we have the offsite in our company And that's when we start planning for the OKRs on a quarterly basis. No,
Right.
For the Agile Scrum, we have the cadence in weeks. So our sprints are in weeks, and we base the success of these sprints based on the granularity on how these quarterly OKRs are broken down into monthly and then into the weekly or the sprint level sprint goals.
Right, interesting. So that stops the staff being overwhelmed by meetings then, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's also good to understand cadence in terms of business and in terms of engineering, because from the OKR side, you want to be meeting your goals on a quarterly basis, no?
Yeah.
And given these adaptive OKRs, which have a range, you have enough time to adjust and to like adjust the sails so that the team is motivated every single sprint, no?
Yeah.
So on these week level sprints with our Scrum teams, we get the feedback down to that detail. Meaning if the market is responding, if the students are actually getting their work done on a project basis, if there's been any, let's say, complications with our product, if we need some product improvements, we know that on a weekly basis, and that goes up to the quarterly OKRs. So there's a downstream and an upstream feedback on the cadence. So
Right.
yeah, so we adjust on that level, on all levels.
Interesting. So when you go into organizations and do the upskilling that you mentioned right at the beginning with their staff,
Mm-hmm.
is the agile routine something that you try and embed into the organization, or do you leave them to try and discover that for themselves?
Mm-hmm. By the agile events, you're talking about the dailies, right? And these yeah. So on the I would say on the staff level or on the team level, the dailies are always happening on the Scrum teams, on the projects, and going higher. There are some teams or some cities that actually do the dailies on a city level in terms of management.
Right.
And on the executive level, we, instead of having dailies, we have the weeklies.
Mm-hmm.
So we sync every day, but it's very informal. But the weeklies are are formal ones where we actually sync and make sure everyone is on track.
I understand. Okay, interesting. So just going back then to what we were sort of discussing at the beginning, and in the research call that you did alongside Roger,
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the concept of adaptive OKRs. Now, I feel like we've kind of discussed that in the conversation we've been having. But could you just sum up for us what you mean about adaptive OKRs? Because that's a really interesting concept that I think a lot of our listeners won't have come across before.
Yeah. So OKRs per se are like things set in stone. So that's the target. I mean, from a business standpoint, you'll get this from stakeholder meetings and all these business meetings where they want solid targets that you either make it or you don't. No?
Yeah.
And then you have the agile discipline on the other hand, saying, okay, we have to be adaptive to the market. We have to understand and respond. And this is where the word adaptive comes in. No? So That's why the term adaptive OKRs was something that I would coin it with. No? So if you get OKRs with a certain range of values, not just one number. So I was saying, like, we have the best case scenario, the as expected scenario, and also the worst case scenario. You get let's say a bigger target board there. So it's an adaptive OKR where the team is actually allowed to respond based on what the market throws at them. And this makes a lot of sense because in one quarter, so many things can happen.
Absolutely.
You can't just say, okay, in February and March, we're going to hit X number of sales.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you don't make that and then you start showing the team constantly that they're not going to meet that number, it's very, very demotivating. And you don't want that kind of atmosphere in the team. 100%. You want the team to be constantly motivated, and you want to be a leader that is able to provide this motivation in terms of these numbers. So adaptive OKRs make a lot of sense. Not just on an engineering level, on an agile level, but also on a company level, on a business level, because I think
completely agree.
Yeah, this is what a healthy organization is about. Everybody's on the same page. Everybody's motivated. Everybody's driven, and they have a goal that's actually attainable, that's reachable.
Yeah, and this is something that I discussed with a previous guest, actually, Brett Knowles, on Series 2, Episode 1 of this podcast, in that for almost every single industry, the importance of cycles and the duration of cycles is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. You know, what used to happen in 5 years could happen over 3 months now in how quickly the markets move and adapt. So
that is totally true, and I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, and it just seems to be getting shorter and shorter. And you know, we were discussing something different. We were discussing about finding the drumbeat of your organization and actually trying to find what sort of cadence is right. But I think having these adaptive OKRs is super important, and it's something that we include in our methodology as well. We term it curveball management, i.e. when a curveball comes along and you need to change. Because that can happen within 3 months. 3 months is still a long time.
Totally hear you on that.
100%. So how long did it take for you guys at Ubiqum to start to get traction with OKRs?
So we started implementing OKRs this year in January, and I would say that we've been pretty successful in implementing OKRs since then.
Fantastic. That's a pretty quick success. That's only what, 2.5 cycles?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2.5 cycles, almost 3. Yeah. And I would say I think the Agile principles also have a lot to do with our adaptation of the OKRs.
Sure. That's really interesting. So what does the future of the business look like then?
For this year, we are looking at our 7th and 8th cities. So it's continuous growth that's sustainable. That's one thing that we would like to do.
Yeah.
And mostly that, some growth that's sustainable and executable.
And do you attribute your growth success down to OKRs at all? Do you really see that as a useful tool in making sure you plan out properly for these growth measures?
I would answer a solid yes on that. I mean, OKRs allow us to actually have a shared vision and target. You know, if there were no OKRs and like being 100% flexible, that doesn't really give a solid message to investors, for example. You know?
Sure.
You want your investors to be comfortable when you show them numbers also. So these OKRs are important.
Just out of interest, and I'm actually recording a separate podcast on this in a couple of weeks with a man called Dan Coyle. But have you used OKRs as evidence to your investors in order to raise funding?
Yes, totally. And I would say that right now our investors are really happy, and we're continuing to grow.
Fantastic.
And I would say we're going to be continuing with OKRs as far as we can go.
Brilliant. I'm really glad to hear that. So that's just been a really fascinating little conversation for me, because I hear so many times about companies unsure how to mix these two principles from their dev team through to OKRs and the rest of the organization. And I think you've provided some really nice clarity there. Just finally, RJ, what's the one piece of advice you would leave with a business owner or COO like you are, who's looking to start to implement OKRs or maybe is in their first cycle with them?
So I would say this is coming from because I've also done a lot of research work, and I've written several research articles also on Agile and Scrum.
Right.
And one of the things that I'd like to tell the listeners right now regarding OKRs is that sometimes you have to be flexible. I know a lot of people are going to say, okay, RJ, you're like breaking rules again.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that sometimes you have to look at your company, and then give it what it really needs. Because if a book says something, or if a research article says something, you're not going to apply it 100% to your company and make your company adapt to those rules. Because
absolutely,
it doesn't work that way. You have to give your company what it really needs, and sometimes it's asking you to have adaptive OKRs.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it needs.
Yeah.
And if your company can grow with adaptive OKRs, then please go ahead.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that is a really brilliant point, because OKRs are an open source framework. There is no one size fits all method with OKRs. And
true.
The very first piece of our methodology is helping organizations create what we call their OKR playbook. Which is in essence, their Bible for the organization and how they're going to use OKRs and what they're going to do to be adaptive at the same time. So I think that's a brilliant piece of advice to leave the list. Please don't just go away and read these books, as interesting as they are in the methodology. You can't just implement those things within your organization and get traction straight away. RJ, thank you so much.
Thank you, Lawrence.
You've mentioned there the research articles and things that you've written. Where would our listeners be able to find those?
They are in actually scientific publications. I could send you some links. Just look for RJ Macasaet on Google Scholar. They're mostly scientific articles and research papers. But yeah, if you look for RJ Macasaet on Google Scholar, some of the articles are going to come up there. Fantastic.
I'll definitely be doing that after this podcast. But again, thank you so much for joining us. Really, really insightful podcast there, and a great conversation.
It's been a pleasure.
So once again, everybody listening, thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure you do so. Whether that's through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any of them really, we don't care, whichever your favorite one is. And the other thing I just really want to let you know about is that on October the 3rd in Amsterdam, everybody, the International OKR Forum will be taking place, which is Europe's largest dedicated OKR conference. They have some amazing speakers lined up, and it's just going to be a full day of chatting about OKRs, learning about different methodologies, hearing from people who have implemented them in their organization and the impact they've had. And it's really just going to be an awesome day. I'll be there, Roger will be there, and a number of our friends and colleagues will be there as well. So if you can get over to Amsterdam for the 3rd of October, I'd highly recommend it. And apart from that, thank you everybody for listening. And I'll join you next time for Giant Talk, the world's first OKR podcast.